Today is the day, now is the moment. The submarine frame is finally finished in all of its glory. We have a front winch, boom. We have a rear winch, boom. Roll cage mounts, bumper reinforcement. So go in a little bit more detail. The front winch is pretty simple. The fair lead has really fancy Allen bolts, and if you pull this back, you see that the hole in the bumper is larger than the hole in the fair lead. Just make sure that the rope has enough room to get through there. There are two cross members going across here. Reinforcement here, 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 and here. So that was the easy part. The hard part was to do the rear winch. First thing I did is made a box around the winch, just like that. And then I lifted up, jacked up in the Jeep, and then I found that where the panel originally mounts, there's like a C channel that comes out of here, straight to the panel. Well, it was right in the way, hitting the corner here and hitting the corner right here. Now it was already fatigued and rusted anyway, so I decided, oh, let's just cut it out. And then I put rectangular tubing to reinforce the panel right here. Now this is your main tow point. This is where people are going to get 20 foot of slack on the tow rope, and they're going to be yanking you out. So you want that to be as strong as possible. So what I did is I tied that into the winch mount. So now with that area cleared up, pulled the winch in, and then I welded reinforcement bars back here that mount to the bottom of the box. They go up to this cross member and weld. And then an extra support, we got some gusset going on right here. Now originally I wanted it symmetrical and I put in a square tube here. But the problem was that at full flex, it was going to hit the differential. So I had to re-weld that, slide this over. So it's a little offset, but that's alright. So now after we got that, we want something to keep the winch from pulling forward. So we got tubing here and here. So that's what kept the box in place. Now we wanted to have some extra support on this. Now these pieces actually go all the way into the frame to the back of here, and they weld on just like that. So what I did is I got some pieces and put one on each side that weld to the inside of the frame here to here, and it hits this tube and this tube. So overall it looks a little overkill, but everything serves a purpose. Now the fair lead of the winch comes out the back, and there's really not that much interference with the pintle. I was surprised. So after that was done, then I reinforced the bumper. Just got a gusset going here, because if you just barely hit something on this and bent it, that would just suck. So got that. This is the roll cage mount. Now I wanted something, this was actually made before all the winch stuff, so I just welded that in there. Same thing over here, another gusset. So that is the rear winch mount. Everything is totally hidden. The only thing I had to do to the winch to modify it was I had to cut the big lever off of here so that it would fit underneath the tub while not hanging down too low. It hangs down just a tick under here, but it's really not too noticeable at all if you look at it like that. So that took a lot of time, a lot of thinking. And then, just the standard roll bar mount for the front there. Have all the mechanical linkage for the throwout bearing. There's some mechanical linkage there, there. Motor mounts all in place. Battery trays pre-fit for an Optima D35 battery. Everything is welded, everything is done, touched up. Cleaned up where it needed to be. So we are ready to pull the drivetrain out, figure out that, and then start painting the frame. Here's going to be the off-road glory. So this is a new old stock military front locker for a Dana 27 axle, even though the axle we're using is a Dana 25. Guys that over at Quarter Ton Military found a bunch of these. Dated 1961. So this is a real deal. This is what they would have put in, the late CJ3Bs, CJ5s, stuff like that. So it came with the locker, the instruction manual, the box. Now to make this work in the Dana 25, we had to contact Herm, the overdrive guy, and he has a kit Alright, so this is a pretty cool setup. So this is the old parts, this is the new one. So you take the ring gear off of this, and then since this is a Dana 27, that's a Dana 25, we've got this spacer from Herm. So you just take this, you drop it over like so, and then you take this, drop it over, and you bolt it on just like you normally would. And then over here we have brand new bearings and races. So you put the bearings on as they're supposed to, like that. And then you put the race on like that. Okay, so here is a closer look of the limited slip differential in the axle housing. This is kind of just to show you what to do when you do install one of these, so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So you'll see when it's sitting in here, it's offset, and that's because of the gear that's behind it, which that gear is the input yoke on the differential. So when this is spinning, it spins a little gear in here, which then spins the pinion gear. Now, when this is all installed, it has to be perfectly set side to side and front to back, and I'll kind of show you what I mean. This is a gear that rotates the pinion. So you'll see that there's markings on it if you look really close. And these markings were set by Willys at the factory. That basically tells you where your pinion is set front to back. You actually have to use shims to mesh up these two gears perfectly together. You don't just slap them in and go. The gears have to hit at a perfect spot on the teeth to make a nice wear pattern. And if you get that spacing wrong, it can be really noisy. You can wear these out really fast. It can overheat the differential, blow your oil seals out of it. I mean, all kinds of catastrophe. So basically what you do to set that is one of your main things you want to do is when you buy bearings for your carrier, you want to buy two sets. You see how this set slides on and off really easy? That's because I've actually reamed the inside of this bearing out, so that way we can get it on and off. You need a set of dummy bearings. You actually have shims behind the bearing. These shims are actually what push the carrier side to side. So there's a ton of shims on this side because I had to slide mine over to the left. So I've got a bunch of shims over here, and then just only, and actually no shims over here. Some are different. I mean, there's really no two that are the same. So if you can't get the tooth pattern shim perfectly there, which you'll have to watch a video on how to do it, but if not, it's really simple. There's also shims back here that you move, so you just have to pop this thing out by removing the yoke. The whole thing slides out. You can add shims, remove them back here too. So basically that's what you're going to want to do. You don't want to buy a set of new bearings and press the suckers on, which is what I did, because I acted first and watched the video later. Because I pushed them on and then I was like, oh crap, there's no shims behind them. So that's why you're going to want two sets. Get the nice, more expensive bearings to do this. But just make sure they slide on and off really nice. You do not want to get them stuck. The reason why you want the dummy bearings is because when they're on here, I mean they're on here. You can't press these things off without destroying them basically. Because the problem is that the inside of the bearing right here sits flush up with this. So it's not like you can get a piece of metal to catch it and pull it off. It catches this outside piece and destroys it, and all the little needles go flying everywhere. I mean, you could try a bearing puller, but I don't think you're going to be very successful. So that's how you would do that. Then we slide in the axle shafts back together. Get all that set up. We've got the drivetrain wire wheeled. And this thing's going into primer and full paint. The sub is going to be knee-high by the 4th of July. That's the goal. Knee-high, painted, ready to rock 4th of July. Well, here we have the sub is knee high by the 4th of July. Check that out, it's actually a little higher. So what do we got going here? We painted the frame primer and then a custom desert tan. This is the same desert tan as kind of like a newer Toyota pickup. So right now we've got the locking hubs installed, and since these tires are so wide, they really only stick out about an inch, maybe an inch and a half at the most. So that's nice. One reason why the tires stick out as well is because we have a 1-inch spacer on here to clear the Chevy K10, like 1976-ish brake system up here. Way more than this Jeep would ever need. Brake rotors are actually off of a CJ7. So everything that's bolted on here right now is permanent. Got the panel on, so the next step we're going to have to do is get the drivetrain prepped and then paint it and then install it.